Hi everyone, today we're going to talk about timeline planning. So for example, if you own a HDB or you own a private, right, you're thinking whether to actually move to a HDB or private or from HDB to HDB, right, all these different scenarios, we're going to actually talk about it in this video, and we're going to focus on the timeline.
So I think for timeline, right, within the planning, I think it's very important because when it comes to sell and buy, right, the most important, which later we touch on, right, will be the gap of the 21 days apart, and we will dive deeper into it, like why these 21 days.
Yes, correct.
So let's go. So before we start, for this video, right, everything we share is for educational purposes. If you really do want to buy and sell on your own, do your own research and also seek professional advice. So for sell HDB, right, then buy HDB. This is, I think, the most common, but the most important is without Contra. So for easier perspective, right, Contra is usually HDB loan to HDB loan. So normally the completion date will be fall on the same day. This is pretty straightforward. But in the event, sometimes people, when they sell HDB, right, and they buy the next HDB, they will be using a bank loan. Yeah. Then they cannot do Contra. This is where the without Contra comes in and why we need to plan in this manner. So let's dive in.
Okay, so if you actually look at the timeline, right, for example, selling a HDB, most of the timeline is almost the same, but the key difference, right, is that you actually look at the submission period, right. Usually we'll try to ask for a 60-day submission. Why? Because during this period, we will actually go and look and actually buy our next HDB. Yeah, so during this period, we will actually go and view houses, and then when we find something, then we can actually go and submit. Okay, so we actually need to be upfront with the buyer and request for this 60-day submission. And of course, if you can, we'll also have this 3-month extension. Why we need this 3-month extension? So that after the completion of our next house, right, we can actually do some renovation, maybe about 2 months.
So actually, why is it so important for you to know this, right? It's for this 60-day submission, right? One thing that we don't know is when you want to proceed to buy a house, right? There are certain scenarios might happen. Suddenly, maybe the unit that you want to buy, maybe they don't want to sell. Or maybe there's a high COV. Then you will have a problem in a way that you need to find another house. So this is where we have to have a 60 days in place so that you got sufficient time
buffer
to actually to have a very good buffer so that you won't be so stressed in this. You will be able to react when things happen. I always tell my client, right, during these 60 days, definitely that you have to give some commitment in the way. So that, for example, during the weekends, right, we might need to see a lot of houses. Maybe 4 a day, or maybe sometimes when during the weekdays at night we also need to go and see, because at this point, right, we only got 60 days to really find a house. Yeah, I think this is the part that we feel that is a bit stressed, but we will go through it together with our clients. Then the next thing you need to ask is the 3 months. So this 3-month extension of stay, right, is for easier purposes so that you don't need to move 2 times. You can straight away transit for your new house after the renovation. That I think that's why we need to, when we sell house, sometimes you will notice that some people will tell you, when you search for house, right, maybe the agent will tell you, this unit need extension, need 60-day submission. This is the thing that's why you will know that they are doing a sell-buy.
So one of the key things, of course, to double reinforce is that when you see your selling completion, right, and your buying completion, the key thing in timing the whole thing, right, is that it must be about 21 days apart. Why 21 days apart? Is so that your CPF got enough time to actually go to the next house. So this is one key thing that you need to take note when you do a sell buy.
Yeah. So usually for your CPF refund, right, it took for your selling, right, it's 10 days. Then you go back to your OA. Then after that, right, your buying, the lawyer will write into your CPF, right, to withdraw from your CPF. So that's why we need your 21 days apart. But you don't ask me why 21 days. This is the things that have been known in the market that they have set this way, so that
I would say 21 days is a safe number. Yeah, because if you do too little, right, sometimes it can, but it might be a bit rushed.
Or some law firm will not do it because they ask minimum 21 days.
Correct, because you need to give CPF some time. So this is for sell buy.
So of course, once you complete, right, your buying, right, that's where you transit to your renovation. So a lot of things that you can do during the 8 to 11 weeks, right, here is to sometimes request for a visit with your ID to the unit. Of course, you must ask the seller for permission, all these things, so that you can do your measurement first, you can do your planning first, your budgeting first. So when you straight complete, you become an owner, you can transit to renovation straight away. I think this is the most important because the timeline, right, is actually quite tight. But
Yes.
I think this is the most perfect timeline that most people can do it.
Okay, so Matthew, I ask you, what if, right, we cannot find something within 60 days? What will happen?
Okay, this is the scenario. So today, if you want to buy something, right, if your criteria is a bit niche, also we actually serve clients that have some niche requirements. Like for example, they only want to stay certain blocks cluster because they want to stay beside the parents' house so that they can have family support. So at that point of time, I prepare them that tell them that for this criteria, we must lead a certain of luck involved, because in the end of the day, we also don't know this customer got unit selling, number one. Number two, the unit that is selling, right, may not fit what you want.
Yeah.
You might don't like the facing, don't like the
a
lot of things that, you know. So we cannot control this one. So it might exceed this 60 days. So once it exceeds 60 days, right, we will have one problem. You might need to find a place to stay, because once exercise, right, the sales must go on. If not, if you cancel the sales, right, you might meet into legal action from the buyer. But in another solution, because when we do submission, right, if you cannot get a exercise OTP for your purchase, right, you can't get this
3 months,
3 months extension, because when you submit, we need an exercise OTP. So technically, you will submit without extension. But what if during the 8 to 11 weeks, right, we actually found a unit that can match your requirement, right? What we do, right, we can actually submit manually to HDB to ask them to request for the the extension of stay.
Yeah.
Still can be done. So one thing is you must have the agreement with the buyer that you request that you have the 3 month extension in place, so that when things happen, they are able,
You still can submit.
you still can submit.
Submit for 3 months. So the next thing I want to talk about, right? Okay, what if I want to buy HDB first and then sell HDB?
Okay,
Is it something that can be done?
so it can be done. So usually when we meet clients, we always say sell first or buy first, because the biggest worry for our client is always, if I sell first, right, there are things that maybe I cannot find something that I want. Because when you go back to this, like 60 days, right, cannot find something I want, right, that meaning I have to go through the whole process, right?
Means you confirm need to buy a house.
Yeah, they might feel that I might buy something not I want, maybe I feel forced. So their solution is to buy first, then sell lah. But this one also got their pros and cons, correct? When you sell first, right, the con, right, is you are forced in these 60 days to find a house. If not, everything you need to find a place to stay.
You need to rent first or what, but still need to buy something.
Yeah,
That's the main point.
correct. So the key difference for buying first, right, will be the 90-day submission. So when we want to buy the house, we must ask that, can we have a longer submission date for 90 days so that we can have these 3 months to sell our existing flat?
Yes.
This is the number one. But always I ask my client these things when this time now you're also forced to certain timeline, right? 90 days to sell your house. So I will always ask which will you feel more comfortable, because when you are forced to sell within a certain time frame, right?
Yeah.
You have no really control over the pricing in a way, because if you sell first, right, you can still
See whether to accept the offer.
correct.
Yeah.
But when you already buy already, you left this 90 days. So in these 90 days, any offer you come in, you must
Seriously consider.
then when you really wait until maybe left 2 months, left with 1 month, right, a lowball offer come in.
Must see your situation, you might accept.
Because no choice, because you have to sell within the 90 days. So this is the con of buying first. So after these 90 days, right, when you buy already, right, and you manage to sell, right, then we will follow back to the selling timeline. Same timeline. Then main thing is the 21 days. So the submission, same thing, we will submit the selling first, then maybe we hold 14 days, then we submit the buying. Yeah, we just reverse back to the same thing, just that. But the main thing you need to know is, today, how confident is your agent able to sell within the 3 months? And also, we have to look at the transaction in your area.
Correct.
Is your area something that is demand, or maybe over the past 3 months only one unit sell? Then maybe buying first then sell might not be a good
You
idea.
have to see your area, I mean your unit, right, the location, everything. Is it there's a lot of demand or not? Then it's more safer to do this way.
If there's no demand, I suggest I will still go for the standard sell first, because the stress level for buying first is, because you are holding 2 houses, definitely it's more stressful than
You must sell, you cannot back out, right, because you already exercised the buying.
So then you are very forced in a situation to sell at a price that you are maybe not in the control.
Correct.
If you are in an area that is not so easy to sell.
So we see the next scenario, which is also quite common. This is what we call upgrading. Let's say you want to sell a HDB and then buy a private, and you want to use the sales proceeds from your HDB. How can you do it? So let's dive into it. So for example, okay, HDB selling timeline again is the same thing. Actually, everything is almost the same. Okay, the key thing again is the 60-day submission where we go and see house. This time we go and see private house. But the key difference in terms of private and HDB, right, is that there is no such thing as submission and all these things. Which means after you exercise your OTP, right, your completion date, you can actually set it. Yeah, so usually we will set it 10 to 12 weeks from exercise date. So if you want 8 weeks can be done, but usually 8 weeks is for cases where there is no loan involved, because loan requires a bit more time to actually do. So for this, again, you just need to time. The key thing is the completion must be 21 days apart. So for private, I would say the completion date is still quite flexible. Of course, you must always tell the seller that the completion might need to delay if, let's say, your HDB completion is not 21 days before your buying completion. Yeah, so you must preempt the so-called seller that you might have to delay the completion.
So the private, right, why this 10 to 12 weeks is for the redemption of loan. That's why for 8 weeks, right, so usually it's those cases without loan, but sometimes you still depends on the law firm whether they want to do in 8 weeks or not, because right now the preferred one is 10 to 12 weeks.
Safer.
So Dillon mentioned, right, from this here, right, the completion can be discussed. So in a way, we can still write in the OTP, right? For example, the completion date to be 21 days after the HDB completion, subjected to changes, so that we can at least preempt the seller that we have to change the completion date, because sometimes we cannot control this part. So when will we know the HDB appointment, right? It's always when we submit, right? And we get the acceptance letter for the HDB officer to come down to take a look, right? They usually have a date already. So from that date, right, we still got ample time to change here. To tell the law firm, hey, can we change the date to this date? Because if not, we can't complete. So all these things, we say is like, now it's a good scenario, but you must really prep both sides.
Correct.
You must prep the seller, you must prep the buyer also. Yes. That timeline's subjected to change because we are doing upgrading.
Yes.
You know, all these things. So
cannot last minute say.
Yeah, because one thing about why this part, right, is they scared they redeem the loan too fast. You know, for the 8 to 10 years, if we too last minute change the date to further, right, if they redeem the loan too fast, right, then there might be some admin fee involved. All these costs, right, might be bear by our side because we change. But as an agent, right, it's really to minimize all these things, to make sure everything is talked beforehand. Everyone is clear on the timeline. If anything happen, we got time to react. Also, when we react, right, it's easier to do in a way because we already prep all the parties involved already.
Yes. Yeah. So to minimize disruption, usually, of course, we will try to time everything as sweet as possible. But again, we cannot be totally 100% time it 21 days apart. Sometimes. Sometimes.
That's why we forget to mention for all the timelines, right? Why 3-month extension, right? Usually the 21 days is involved, right? Took away about 1 month. So you're left with about 2 months to do your renovation. That's why we call the seamless transition. But if you get a house, a lot of reno, for HDB extension is only 3 months. Next 3 months. Very different from private. Private, you can agree, as long both parties agree, you can have a longer extension.
So this is a typical upgrading case, okay? So another scenario, example, I want to buy my private first, then sell. Can it be done or not? And then how can I use the sales proceeds from my HDB to do this? So we're going to share with you.
Yeah, it can be done, but this one, in my opinion, not preferred idea.
Okay, let's explain why.
Because in the end of the day, when you buy a private first, right, because it's a private agreement, so we can ask the seller, I want to buy your house first, but I haven't sold my house. I haven't sold my HDB. So what I do, right, we will ask for a longer option period, like 4 or 6 months. So of course, this one, it must depend on how confident your agent, how confident can sell within this period. Because right now we are not talking about 1,000 option money already. We're talking about 1% of the deposit. And during this time, right, when you ask for longer option, right, the seller side won't accept 1%. You will ask for maybe 2 or 3% because you are holding them for a longer time. Then you also
harder for you to
forfeit because it's a bigger amount. Correct. So from there, it might be a higher deposit. So the stress will be we need to sell within 4 to 6 months. This is the key thing. Correct. Then everything will be the same. We will still need to focus on the 21 days apart so that the CPF itself can disperse. Then everything will be the same. We will use this 3 to 6 months to do the submission, to sell. But main thing for buy first for private is this stuff. I think this is the main thing. Then the thing that you need to know will need a higher deposit. Of course, in terms of completion, right, they might be 12 to 4. But that one will usually, all these weeks we put in a range. But when it comes to the real thing, right, then we can really see what are the dates. Then from there, we can actually pinpoint more accurately.
Because we need to see at which point during this 4 or 6 months we sell the house. Then from there, we are able to time it. Yeah, because we don't know at which point we sell the house.
Then also we also see the buyer who buy the HDB, right, what timeline they need. Correct. Because some buyer later they tell, hey, but I also haven't sold my house. Or maybe the person say, oh, I need a longer submission because I also need to sell my house. So there are things that happened.
A lot of factors.
So we have to see, I mean, there's a lot of scenario. We can't really tell you the whole scenario.
Yeah.
But main thing is certain timeline requires certain flexibility.
Correct.
There's no like the perfect timeline.
Yeah.
It's just that how we manage it to make it more seamless for my client.
Correct.
Create less stress.
So the next one we're going to talk about, right, is sell private, then buy HDB. So this one is what we call right sizing. So how do we do it? This one, okay, we look at the private selling. Actually, it's quite straightforward. It's a normal private selling. The only key thing is that usually we recommend if let's say you are selling your private, in the meantime also you can actually start to see houses to buy. Why? Because when you actually receive the 1% deposit, right? So to give the 1K deposit, right, you get the OTP, you can do it anytime after you already get your 1%, because in the event that they never exercise, right, you will actually forfeit this 1K. If not, then if you don't want to forfeit this 1K, then you can only get the OTP after the buyer exercise.
I think like that it will be more fair in a way, to time in a way when the buyer confirm exercise, right? Then you go and put a 1K.
It's safer, then you
be safer, and also to be fair to the seller, because in the end of the day, your side forfeit, then you forfeit their side, they actually lose 21 days also lah.
Yeah.
So these are things that maybe we can try to see whether we can have a perfect solution. But of course, one thing I think when we do about sell private to private or sell private to buy a HDB, right? The most important will be you must do concurrently.
Yeah.
Because it's not so easy lah. Because today for HDB selling, right, you get the 60-day submission to find house. But for the selling private, right, once option, right, we only got 14 days to exercise. So technically, once you receive your offer, right, you got 14 days to find a house to match the timeline more easily lah. So what we do, right, is always at this part where we serve as private client, right, we will do concurrent.
Yeah.
We will sell, marketing, and also go and look for houses. So in the event we see something we like, then also we got something offer, or maybe when we got offer, we see that unit we like, whether the unit is still available or not.
Yeah.
I think then we can actually time it perfectly.
Yeah. So this one, the key thing to take note also when you're looking for HDB, let's say the HDB on the buy, for example, certain cluster or certain area, right, is to see is there a lot of listings in that area or not. If it's only 1 or 2 listings and you are just banking on it, right, and then you sell already, what if the moment you sell, right, that listing gone, then that one will be stressful. So that's the key thing you must take note. But the key thing is that you must do it concurrently.
Yeah, keep your options open.
Keep your options open. And start early. Cannot start after you sell, then start the view a bit tight.
So you see, why are all these timeline in place? Why is it there's no like perfect? Because in the end of the day, if you want a perfect house that you want, right, then you have to sacrifice more. Why? By renting. So you sell already, you rent, then you got time to buy. That's the sacrifice that you have to give. But if you want to make it like a sell buy, seamless, everything, right, we have to follow this timeline so that you won't have to move for 2 times. Right. You don't need to rent. So if you really want to find a perfect house, don't want to be forced in a situation, then you have to sell and rent.
Yes, be prepared to rent or find a place to stay lah.
Correct.
Because there will be a period where you are so-called having no house. So the next one is, again, we sell private and then buy private. So this one,
I think it will be the same thing lah. Main thing is to do concurrently over here. When you start marketing and you start to rehouse all together, so that when we see something we like, we got an offer, we can weigh it up so that we can see, should I accept the offer? Because it's really something we like. Then if the offer is not good, then we cannot go. So you have to see itself. Yeah, you cannot wait until I get a good offer first, then I go and see house, because I don't think you have enough time. Because private OTP, you don't need second guess the date. You can write the date in the OTP. Right? So you're selling, you put this date, then after that you're buying, right, you put the 21 days apart, then you won't have any issue. Yeah. Just that for HDB, the completion date
is controlled by HDB. I mean, not controlled, like
it's set by HDB.
Set by HDB.
So we get is the date, then is the date. But of course, we can still write into change. Don't worry.
But as a rule of thumb, HDB usually can delay. But to make it earlier, a bit tough unless really special circumstances.
Yeah.
Depend on the officer.
I only know that if there are more party involved, usually there will be more problem lah. It's difficult, because sometimes suddenly the buyer got this thing, this selling timeline will affect our buying timeline. Yes. So we have to manage these type of things. As an agent, sometimes we don't see the hard work involved, but sometimes managing timeline quite stressful also for us. But because we have to be very sure, we have to be concise. Because in anything timeline wrong, right, means you can't complete, become a problem.
Quite a big issue lah. Yeah, it's quite a big issue.
Yeah.
So that's why we need to be able to discuss with all the agents involved in the transaction lah. Okay. Then the next one is again same thing, but now we buy HDB and then after that we sell. Can it be done? Actually also can be done. So for this one, again, same thing is the longer option period. So actually more or less the same, longer option period. Of course, within this longer option is that you must sell your private. So again, the stressful part is that if you have to sell within 4 to 6 months, again, you have not much control over the pricing for your private. But other than that, it's more or less the same.
So the key things in terms of timeline management, right, is more on like today, which part of the stress, because there's no stress one. Which part of the stress you want? You want the control of price, then your stress will be finding the house in the timeline.
Yeah.
But if you want to find your perfect house, then you have to stress on your selling price. Yeah, I mean, of course, the best scenario is you buy first, then you sell a house at your best price. I mean, this is the perfect scenario. But of course, you must ask your agent how confident that he can get your price for. Because in the end of the day, if the agent promise you that he can sell all these things, but in the end of the day, after maybe 5 months, you left with 1 month, the price still not achieved, then
then you have to see lor,
just
whether you want to accept.
So in the end of the day, the stress will still be on your side lah.
So the next one we want to see, okay, this one is a bit special. This is for people that actually want their own HDB, right? And then they want to buy a new EC. So can they actually buy the new EC, then after that sell their HDB? Can it be done? So basically this scheme called the deferred payment scheme. And then you can also use something called the bridging loan.
So this scheme is very popular because you can literally buy a EC, right, without selling your HDB first. Then when it's nearing T collection, right, DOP, right, then you start to sell a house. Which is why it's very popular among the upgraders because no one likes to move houses. Yeah, a lot of time. Right. So that's why they come out with this deferred payment scheme to really help to make it seamless.
So how does this thing work? So you look at this, of course there's a lot of words because basically, right, these two lines is not in tandem. Okay, what I mean by that is that the selling timeline is roughly the same. Okay, everything is the same. Just the key thing to take note, right, for EC, at the start, you have to actually pay, you must have 20% plus your buyer's stamp duty. You cannot say, I use the money from your HDB sales. So you must have it already, then you can book, okay, and buy the house. Then the remaining 65%, which you can use CPF or loan or whatever, right, is you can actually pay at a TOP date when you collect the key. But the thing you must take note is that to do this, you need to actually have a deferred payment scheme and also a bridging loan. So how does this bridging loan work? Example, they will tell you, okay, you roughly know the TOP date, right? So example, maybe 6 months before or 9 months before the TOP date, you can actually start to market and sell your HDB, okay? And in order for you to actually pay the remaining, the loan and all these things, you need to have what we call the HDB approval letter. That means after you sell your house, after you do submission, endorse and everything, right, then the HDB approval letter come out.
So not the acceptance letter, it's the approval letter.
Yeah, not
approval letter.
Yes, the approval letter come out. Then the bank will disperse the bridging loan. So this is very important, the HDB approval letter. Then of course, to pay everything, the CPF to go in also, and to pay off your bridging loan, right, it has to be 21 days after completion. Because once the CPF refund goes back to your OA after selling, right, then you can repay the bridging loan. So why is this important? Because bridging loan, you're paying interest, and the max you can go is 6 months. So usually 6 months quite enough time, but it's just that the longer you drag, the more interest you pay.
So this is one of the things that helps upgraders for EC, just that the stress part will be the selling of house. So today, in this scenario, right, what is the key importance, right, depending on the house you stay again. So if your house is a very popular cluster, units have been selling, can only sell so fast, so maybe 6 months. If you're some cluster that maybe older development, older HDB, maybe the buyer pool is very niche, like because of the CPF,
you need longer time
because a lot of buyers can buy with full CPF, right? Then you might need to start maybe 9 months, because the most important is the HDB approval letter. If you can't get it, then the bridging loan cannot kick in, then we will have a problem at the DOP stage.
Yes, because we need the approval letter before the bank will disperse the bridging loan. That's the key thing.
So today we come to the end of the video. So you can see the timeline for different various scenario, right? I think the most important is you just need to keep the party informed at the start. Everything must be done at the start of the beginning. Like for example, how many days you need to submit, you need 3 month extension. We know that we need some flexibility in the timeline. There are times that we need to change the date so that we can have a seamless transition. These are the things that we need to let the people know.
So you'll come to the end of the video. If you need any advice with regards to your selling and buying timeline, or you are just wondering like, hey, what should I sell first, should I buy first? You want to weigh the pros and cons, right? Feel free to reach out to us. I'm Dillon.
I'm Matthew. Just see you soon.